As always, thank you all so very much for joining us. Today we've got a lot to talk about. I am recapping season 3, episode 2 of Real Housewives of Atlanta's episode titled Modeled Behavior. In this particular episode, Cynthia Bailey makes her entrance into the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Also, we're going to be talking about Nene. Nene specifically is going to be questioning Greg's trust. She has major issues with his trust. Also, she'll be questioning her son, Bryce. There are other details in this particular episode that I want to talk about, but those are the major. All right, so in this particular episode, we learned that Cynthia Bailey and Nene Leakes have been friends at least for a while, at least since Cynthia has been in Atlanta. But it seems to us that Cynthia has been around and she knows some of the ladies involved in the making of Real Housewives of Atlanta. So much so that Cynthia actually invites Nene to Kandi's party. Okay, and for me, that's a revelation in and of itself. That tells me that the ladies are not as cool as we would believe at this particular point in time. In other words, not everyone is invited to everyone's event. As Cynthia and Nene continue to talk, Nene basically tells Cynthia about the situation with Dwight and how that relates to Greg and her levels of trust for Greg. Now, this is significant because it sets up some themes that we're going to see throughout this particular season. But also in this particular scene, we see that Cynthia is actually telling Nene about an ultimatum that Peter makes with Cynthia. Peter basically wants to get married, and Cynthia has serious reservations about that. Nene, to her credit, is counseling her about why she should get married by asking her questions. And for me, that is very significant because often what I find is that when you tell someone what to do, they'll often do the opposite. But if you ask them questions that hopefully lead them towards a particular path, they will more than likely go down that path because you seem objective by asking questions. And let's be honest, how often do people really ask us questions about ourselves? Not long within this particular conversation, Nene changes the subject and she talks about specifically about the lack of communication and also the lack of trust that she has with Greg. She shares that she and Greg are at each other's throats, but she also has issues with Bryce. Later in the episode, Bryce comes to Nene's house. And it was actually quite eerie for me seeing someone who had once lived in the house is now ringing the doorbell trying to get in. I remember I always had a key to my mom's house. Even once I moved out, I was in my 30s and I still had a key to my mom's house. So seeing him asking for permission to enter his mom's house, that was kind of wild for me. And that kind of set the stage for what was happening. So while in the house, she and Bryce start to have a discussion. She starts off by saying that he has problems with her. And so she asks, what's the problem? What's the deal? And he's basically telling her in his own way, without using these specific words, that she's too controlling for him. And so she ain't happy. And I think rightfully so. She basically says, you don't work. You're not in school. You attend all these parties. You don't clean your room, which I thought was funny. You don't clean your room. You don't even clean the bathroom. You leave your clothes all over your room. And you don't even speak when you come into the house. You don't speak to me, right? You don't show me the respect that I deserve. And on top of all of that, you went to jail for carrying marijuana. Who goes to jail for carrying an ounce of marijuana, less than an ounce of marijuana? But if you're going to the jail, don't you know that you got to leave the marijuana in the car? Now, okay, so this was funny to me. It was like basically telling America, yeah, I know you smoke. And I know you've been smoking. I thought that was hilarious. It was hilarious. But that was not her point. Her point was that he makes poor choices. And the choices that he makes has actually landed him into this particular situation. Now, emotionally, let me tell you that in that particular moment, I knew that was more than a real moment. That was an honest moment. Nene cries. Emotionally, she tells him she will never give up on him. Now, that rings true to me on so many different levels. I remember my mom telling me similar things growing up, and I hadn't done anything as severe as what he had done. It's in this moment that he says that he believes she's too strict. And she says, you've lost your damn mind. These are all the things that you've done. I'm the mother. I pay the bills. You live here rent-free. What makes you think you can do all of those things in this particular situation? Now, I don't know exactly how old Bryce was at that particular moment in time, but I remember my mom telling me when I was 17, oh, when you graduate, you either going to college, you're going to either the Air Force, the Marines, the Army, whatever, or you getting out of my house. one of those three things is going to happen, and that's it, right? Meaning, no, you're not going to live here, pay some of the bills. No, you are out. You are a man. You are out. Now I realize, that was like maybe 15 years prior to that particular moment in time. I get it. Like, things change. But it was more than a real moment because, when I look at Nene and I look at my mom, they were about the same age. So that was a real moment for me. And I totally appreciated it. It was a glimpse into a real situation and what a Black mother would have done in that particular situation. And that was what was up. So let's fast forward to Kandi's event. So Cynthia is at the site and she's talking to Cynthia, and she's also talking to Peter, and she's basically saying, hey, look, we're gonna have to get extra security because Dwight is coming to this event, and ain't no telling what Nene is gonna do, so we need extra security. So at this particular point in time, we know that Dwight is coming to the event. Dwight shows up. He actually shows up with Phaedra and Apollo. Okay, Apollo. I will forever say that Apollo was the best husband I've ever seen on Real Housewives of Atlanta. I mean, he had it. Okay. It kind of sucked for me to see Dwight on the other arm of Phaedra. But nonetheless, the three of them walk in together. However, I do want to say that at that particular point in time, I thought, I thought Apollo was a real man, in the sense that he didn't feel any kind of way that another man was on the other side of his wife. I think a lot of people, especially at that particular point in time, would have felt some type of way, especially because she was also pregnant. But maybe because she was pregnant, he didn't have any issues with it. Okay. So anyway, pretty much all the ladies are at the event, Kim included, as well as Sheree. They're all at the event, and Nene sees Dwight and she says, hey, look, let's go into a private room. At first he's very reluctant, and then she was like, nah, I'm talking to you, and this is what's up. If I'm telling you this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to act. All right. So they go into a private room, and the two of them talk, and she kind of explains everything from her perspective about what was happening. And you could see the light bulbs go off for him, and he was like, wow, like, I didn't see it from your perspective, and now that I see it from your perspective, I owe you an apology. Again, I thought that was a real moment because it could have gone a totally different way. Now, what's instructive to understand is that she basically says our relationship is never going to be what it was, right? Who knows what the future holds, but it will never be what it was. He hopes for the best. And in that particular situation, that's about all that anybody could do, right? When one person has wronged another, you hope that your relationship can get back to where it was. And if you've been done wrong, a lot of times you're like, nah to that person. Like, nah, I never want to have a conversation with you. I never want to deal with you. I never want to be in your space, at least initially. But in that moment, she's like, I'm open to it, but it'll never be. And again, that was a real moment. Also in this particular episode, we see Kim. Kim is trying to lose weight because, she wants to have, that fit body for someone who's in the music business, right? She wants to have that body. And by the way, at this particular point in time, her body was not that far off from what it should have been, right? At least that's what I saw. But we also see her friend, Sweetie. Now, Sweetie is going to become important a little bit later, but they're letting us know that Sweetie is in Kim's life, and I'll leave it there. She gets a phone call, and someone is inviting her to perform at a live concert. And she says while she's on the phone, hey, wouldn't it be great if my friend Kandi went along with me? And from Kim's perspective, she wants Kandi to be there because, and of course she's singing Tardy for the Party. She wants Kandi to be there because Kandi knows the ins and outs about what to expect. She knows about lighting. She knows about sound. She knows, we know Kandi's past, right? So that's why she wants Kandi to be there. She tells Kandi about it. And of course she has to convince Kandi to go because, their issue with Tardy for the Party. And of course, Kandi decides to go. They go. They arrive. Some funny things happen while they're trying to try on their clothes, and of course, their personalities reveal themselves in terms of what Kim wants to wear, what's appropriate for the situation, what's not appropriate for the situation. Of course, Kim is hitting on a man who we would all assume to be gay. Whether he is or isn't, can't really tell, right? It's just the situation lends itself to the possibility that he is likely gay, and he's not. Like, he's responding to her, but not in the way in which, her flirts or her flirtation is giving. Like, you would assume that he would have responded, but he wasn't responding. So, based on the situation, he wouldn't have. But anyway, she performs. Good performance, and I really do think that Kandi was a good hype man for Kim. I really think, I think Kandi stepped outside of herself, because I don't think that we've ever seen Kandi do something like that. And it was great to see that the two of them have let their bygones be bygone, right? And it was probably all for the sake of the show that Kandi let it go. And in the grand scheme of things, it probably wasn't that serious. All right. Also, we see Sheree. Sheree is going on a date, and for those of you all who have seen season 15, Sheree's date reminds me so much of the recent date that Marlo had with Scott Lee. They both put on their best, all to be taken to a place in the hood. Neither appreciated it, but ended up liking, at least to a degree, the person that they saw. So it kind of seems like Marlo's interaction was a repeat of Sheree. I mean, if you remember that particular episode. Now, specifically on to Kandi, this is what I want to say. So when Kandi was practicing at Peter's venue, I was reminded of how good of a singer Kandi really is. I know that we often make fun of Kandi and her singing. She sings really high, and she has this sound to her voice. But that particular song that she was singing, which really wasn't a song that she really wanted to put out there, was really a good sound, especially for her voice. It was different, right? And because it was different, it was really, really good. And she was hitting some notes, and she was going places that she didn't really go, right, in the past, especially when we think about Escape. So I would have loved to have seen her sing more songs in that wheelhouse. But later, when she performs, that performance, singing the same song, wasn't as great as when she practiced it, but it was still a good song. And you could clearly tell that everyone enjoyed themselves based on her performance. If you like these recaps, kiss on the subscribe button, click on the like button, share us on all your social media, nibble on the notification button, and make love to our census in the comments. Until next time.